Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, November 17th, and today we're doing government and social.
And it's brought to you by Linode. We're doing Devember. What can I tell you about Devember that you don't already know at this point? Because you are an avid watcher of the Level 1 news.
If you don't know, just go watch the old episode. I saw somebody commented on the Friday news, and they were like, "Can somebody point me toward November?" And it's like, does anybody read the descriptions? Is that
you have to click a button?
That Level 1 text.
Are we wasting our time?
So Devember, there's prizes involved. Linode is going to give away probably about 6 months of service, depending on what your project is. We need to look at the particulars of that. So you may get some free hosting from Linode for your project, if that makes sense. But there's also some runners-up. We're going to give away some old hardware, maybe some old AMD CPUs like 2nd Gen Ryzen, some motherboards, random stuff that we got laying around the office that probably not going to make an appearance in any review or any supplementary videos anytime soon. So Linode, they're awesome hosting. Check them out. You can do object storage now with SSL. They just came out with a new tutorial on that. I saw the Linux gamer Gardner. He's been on this channel before. He did a tutorial for that, so that's fun. You did the WireGuard, which I think is correct. I got that wrong last week. The WireGuard tutorial, which is a sort of DIY VPN solution. But Linode also has a bunch of other push-button solutions for doing things that are really cool. So thanks, Linode, and on with the news. Oh, we got some face masks in the Level 1 store, too, but yeah. And there's Rue.
Did we get any of those?
Yeah, if you want one downstairs, we got two.
Oh.
You really spoiled us.
Store.level1text.com. Oh, and the DisplayPort 1.2K VMs are in stock and shipping. 1.4, the back orders are still going strong. So we're making them just as fast as we can. But good Lord, it's amazing. But the 1.2K VMs are in stock, and that's probably going to be the last batch of DisplayPort 1.2K VMs. So get them while you can, because everything's going to be 1.4 from here on out, and they're going to cost more.
Now we have a little bit of a tradition here at the Level 1 News. The first story on Tuesday, if at all possible, is about a certain man. I feel that our tradition will be falling to the wayside in 2021. We'll probably get a couple more. I wouldn't worry too much about it, because we still have to go through the death throes, and then we have to find out where the revolving door will lead, the magical revolving door. But for now, this doesn't surprise anybody, but hey, maybe it'll make us feel good, right?
Bye-bye Ajit Pai. FCC boss will soon lose his top spot. Yeah, so Ajit Pai that we're always talking about, who just this past week, it was in last week's episode of the news. It might be the most ridiculous and transparent thing that he's ever done in terms of, like, you can't assign this to incompetence anymore. It's malice. It's definitely malice. Ever? Well, he did the thing where he did the mental gymnastics where he said that Twitter is a common carrier, where Charter Cable is not.
Makes perfect sense. So yeah, we'll see where he lands. I'm sure it will be a very high floor corner office with a
pour some greasy pieces out.
Little mini bar, probably massage service. That's what you get.
It makes me sad that he's going to be more successful in his career than any of us and most of our watchers will ever be.
Well, listen, lying, cheating, and stealing works. So, in this world where there's this big focus on China, that's probably going away too. But for now, there's the big focus on China. And the idea of like, oh, we can't trust China's stuff. Their hardware, their apps, nothing.
They're constantly meddling with things to spy on us.
Because the Chinese government, even if the company doesn't know it, the Chinese government might be in there just sneaking stuff in. You don't know, because they're so powerful. And this story is an older story. But it certainly points out the problems.
It's a story as timeless as Boy Meets Girl.
It really is.
Swiss report reveals new details on CIA spying operation. So you got to read this. It turns out that the U.S., the CIA, was operating a clandestine... Oh no, what's happening? Was operating a clandestine cryptography company in Switzerland, and it's like, hey, we're Swiss, we're neutral, we're going to sell everybody cryptography products. They had two products, the one that was actually secure and the one that wasn't, and the one that wasn't is the one that they sold most people. We've actually covered this before a couple of years ago because some stuff happened and we reported on it, and it's like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if it turned out that was a CIA front? Guess what? It was.
Now, the big problem here is the Swiss government claims, and we don't know for sure, maybe some people in the Swiss government know and they're dead now or whatever, but they claim they weren't actually involved in this. They didn't know. The Swiss company knew, but the Swiss government was out there banging that neutral drum. That's them, right? They're the neutral drum. Yeah.
Yes.
And
So you're thinking of Sweden. You get them mixed up.
yeah, I always get those mixed up, but I'm pretty sure Switzerland is the neutral
Switzerland
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the
Yep.
So they were out there, banging that neutral drum, but they weren't really technically neutral. I mean,
No.
if you were thinking you were going to go there because that's a safe bet for your technology, you were so dead wrong.
And see, it's so frustrating because whatever insanity that China is actually doing, here is an example of the U.S. doing exactly the same kind of thing. And so your argument is invalid because of that. I definitely think there are human rights atrocities that are happening on both sides, but maybe a little bit more on one side than the other.
And we maybe like in Guantanamo or something, Abu Ghraib, we might take a kidney or two just when we really need them, but not like the Chinese situation.
Yeah. So, but again, those kinds of things, it's kind of undermined by these kinds of operations because it doesn't work on a long enough time scale. It's dumb to engage in this kind of thing.
Oh, but they felt really good about it. The quote's in there.
Yeah.
You definitely check out the article. And now again, I hate to go into the I told you so's, and I don't think I said this on the news, but I've been saying for a long time, Trump should stop fighting the whole election thing because it looks sad at this point. Whether he's right or he's wrong, the media is never going to let him get away with it. What he needs to do is exactly what he's talking about here, because he will enjoy this more and he will be the king of it. No one can do this better.
Scoop. Trump eyes digital media empire to take on Fox News. Imagine a more powerful Alex Jones.
With a built-in audience.
The final form of Alex Jones, if you will.
I mean, he's got probably between 50 and 100 million who are there day one and never leave.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. And so they talk about he is now soured on Fox News because they called, was it Arizona?
Yeah, they prematurely called Arizona.
Not a fan of that. So he's decided to do his own thing, and he should. I mean, he could get up there, he could just talk all of his crap, not have to worry about anything. The social media will still make him a star by attacking him. If he does that, it's a brilliant move. But he needs to stop all the nonsense with the recount. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong or it's right, or I'm sure there was something wrong with this election, but I don't think it matters at this point. They've won. When you've been cheated and you've lost, you still have to lose with some, diplomacy.
You see, you've been baited, Ryan, and now all the comments are going to be.
I think Ryan's actually baiting comments, but I could be wrong.
I like a nice little row in the comment section. Gets the people's dander up.
I can't wait for the nonsense.
That's what we need more.
That Twitter story from the nonsense. Oh man.
Some Trump appointees, other than Ajit Pai, are also probably at risk of losing their jobs, especially if maybe they didn't have the qualifications to run the programs they were put in front of in the first place. And one in particular, I think, is just getting ahead of the truck and being like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to step out gracefully.
NASA administrator says he plans to leave the position under the Biden administration. Says that NASA administrator should be close with the president, and he's never going to be. So he's out.
He was a senator, which is a rare career path. Senator to rocket scientist.
Well, obviously, it's not rocket surgery.
It's more of an administrator.
Yeah,
over
but
top all the scientists.
the administrator
Right?
needs to understand the product.
It's true. It's very, very true if you work in the tech world.
What I understand is the government is depriving private business of income. That's not okay in America. That's all I need to understand.
Listen, we cram the trash can with explosives and we light it at the bottom. What is there to know? It's easy.
Has to have the right amount of banana peels.
If you're in the Great White North, like us, there are some pretty rural parts of that. It's actually much worse than us because at some point, everything's just frozen and dead. And you probably suffer a lot of the same problems, but there's some good news. Relief is finally here. Well, no, actually, it's not here. Actually, there's a giant catch at the end of this number.
Trudeau promises to connect 98% of Canadians to high-speed internet by 2026. The giant catch, if you live away from people, that doesn't include you.
You're the 2%. But the other giant catch, 2026. Krista, you have to wait 6 more years to get your house. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not Canadian, but that still would suck.
No, but I'm saying if you
that.
were Canadian, you might be looking at that situation.
We do have a Starlink article, which is very encouraging for Krista, I think.
No, I think that's the same article from last week.
It was with new pictures.
Oh, I was going to cut it. So some more election news that is, these little ballot initiatives that weren't actually races, but it's like, do we want to make these changes, folks, on a citywide level or a statewide level? And these are encouraging.
Voters overwhelmingly back broadband in Chicago and Denver. Voters in both cities made it clear they're fed up with monopolies like Comcast. And there have been some comments in our audience that I don't know if we covered this kind of thing in the past, but overwhelmingly, universally, people are incredibly satisfied with their ISP when the main goal of the ISP is to provide internet service.
Yeah, it's like so. There's a bunch of restaurants in your city. Well, there's 2, and they build a third restaurant, and in that third restaurant, the wait staff doesn't put cigarettes out on you. That's what it's like. How could they not love it?
It is crazy when you have a government mandated monopoly and you need a communication service. Like, Krista is not buying a house unless it has good internet. A large part of the reason that I'm moving is because the internet service at my house has gotten worse and the ISP doesn't seem to care. I kind of need internet to do my stuff.
To do my job, which stimulates the economy, since that's all people care about.
So I don't know if Illinois was the same, but Colorado has this law that I think Charter actually wrote the law, and I was like, no, you're not allowed to do this thing on your own unless your city specifically votes out of this terrible law that we're creating. So that's what they were doing there. So congratulations, nice. Denver. The FTC is also doing some year-end house cleaning. And we all knew this was coming, but we finally have official numbers and everything's wrapped up.
The FTC announces a settlement with Zoom over security issues. This is from protocol.com. So we've covered this a bunch of times before. There's not really a lot of new information here other than it's finalized. Basically, Zoom said, hey, we got end-to-end encryption. It turned out they were sending it through China in a not exactly well encrypted way. But hey, their service exploded when everybody had to stay home, blah, blah, blah. That's all really important, and that's a good thing to do. But I would encourage you instead to step back and look at the bigger picture of the FTC handling something to do with technology here because of Ajit Pai's FCC. If this is a preview of what we can expect for handling a fairly serious issue for consumers and encryption and stuff like that, of how the FTC is equipped to handle this is really bad. A company that knows what they're doing and is intentionally malicious, like some of the stuff we've seen Facebook do, is going to run roughshod over the FTC effortlessly. And that's what you should take away from this article.
But Facebook says such nice things about Biden. We can't hurt them.
There are certain things that only the FCC is equipped to deal with. It's like you're literally asking the communication, the FCC was set up to deal with radio transmissions. And they're like, we don't have any control over radio transmissions. That sounds like somebody else.
They also have to be monitored for a while. They're on the naughty list for a little while longer, but I doubt anybody's going to go too overboard on it.
The FTC is going to be doing that auditing, which they don't have the staff or they don't know. They're going to ask for a report, and the report's going to be like, "Yep, all good.
We're the best." Now I've been getting a flurry of robocalls in the last 2 days.
All of us have. At least I have.
2 days?
Yeah,
I feel like it's been the last couple weeks, but it's mostly been political campaigns.
But these are the silent ones. They don't say anything to me. Oh, have you guys gotten the voice acting ones?
Yeah, where it's like, hey, blah blah blah.
Or it's like, I'm a ladder. I injure people. I haven't sat all the way through it, but I think it's trying to drum up lawsuit stuff.
Wow.
Anyway, So answering phones is kind of out the window at this point for most people. I think the younger you are, the less likely you are to ever pick up that ringing phone. So what do you do if somebody owes you money? Well, good news, except bad news for most of the population.
Debt collectors will soon be allowed to reach you by text or on Facebook. Ugh. The bad thing about Facebook, though, is that I'm pretty sure like it creates those shadow profiles. So there's going to be cases where debt collectors are like, we notified you on Facebook and nobody was ever, no, it wasn't a real person.
I don't think they can do official communications through this. This is just harassment. You can opt out of it. And I'm sure they're all going to be extra careful to add that link and honor those. But there is no limit to how many times they can do it. So they can just pepper you all day long.
Hey.
Uber was a big winner, Uber and Lyft in California, with their Prop 22 win. And a lot of people, very controversial. But in their eyes, it was a huge win as God intended it. And they're not done.
Uber says it wants to bring Prop 22 laws to other states. It turns out, like, for what Uber offers, there are a lot of people that want that. And the bad news is that it makes it really easy for Uber to exploit people. But people want it.
Literally anyone who works for them.
So
you can't. I think the thing about these jobs is that Americans in particular are kind of, we've fallen into this world of you're a cog in a machine.
Yeah. But
the machine has to promise not to destroy you. And this is a whole new paradigm. Because you're kind of a cog in the machine. But you don't have to be if you don't want to be. And the machine really makes no promises about your destruction.
Yeah.
You kind of just have to juggle it all yourself. And I think some people really struggle with that.
Yeah.
And the machine is out to kill you. That's the other thing to keep in mind in both cases.
Yeah.
Could keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah. Well, the machine is out to kill you in both cases, but one of the cases preemptively takes money from you so that, you'll have it theoretically, maybe at some point in the future. And the other way, it doesn't. And so at some point you end up needing the money, or the money isn't there regardless.
It's like, oh, we don't have health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to deal with that. That's your thing that you got to do.
Well, I think that's going to go about as well as payroll tax went historically.
I love the name Pegatron. Because, of course, it reminds me of Megatron, the Transformer.
The long law. Like
A worse version of that.
Yeah, this is the legacy of the Transformers.
Rue loves it, too.
Yeah, Ruth's just over here at the window whining because she sees the neighbor's dog outside.
So, fantastic name for a company. Got to give them 10 points on that. But when you rate them on their student worker policies, maybe a considerably lower score.
Apple supplier Pegatron found using illegal student labor in China. The company admits the interns worked overtime and night shifts in violation of regulations. It's not regulations, it's law. Chinese law says that students aren't allowed to work like this. And, Pegatron was like, we really need to make these Apple products. So Apple is sanctioning them by not giving them new business, but is continuing to work with them. So this is just farcical.
I took that to be our contract with them is already good up until the end of 2021. And in the meantime, they can jump through whatever hoops they need to get back on the non-naughty list. And then we'll renew our contract after that.
Yeah.
So
Are the students even paid for their work?
They're called
Their normal
interns. I think they do pay them something, but it's probably much cheaper than a regular worker.
Yeah.
Well, that's better than the U.S. where most interns are unpaid.
They also have laws that you're not allowed to work a job that's not related to your study interest. So you have to declare that up front. And these guys are all tech students, but they're just building iPhones. After you've built your 50th iPhone, do you think you're learning anything at that point?
No.
That's like saying the person who works at the Hot Pocket factory is now a master chef. No, that's not how any of this works.
Yes, I have 30 years experience in cooking. Not only did I only make Hot Pockets, I only made the pizza flavor.
I was really motivated because they threatened to take my kidneys if I didn't do a good job.
1 week out of that 30 years, I made the beef and cheese. Otherwise, it was all pizza.
I feel qualified now to cook steaks at your restaurant.
Well, we talked last week about the Ant IPO, and there was some question about what happened. We actually got a couple of or at least one comment, and they were like, "No, it wasn't the Communist Party. It was because the regulatory services didn't like them." Well, sir, you're wrong.
The Wall Street Journal says that China's President Xi Jinping personally scuttled Jack Ma's Ant IPO. It's like, you're too powerful, Jack Ma. You will not supersede me. I am the most powerful man in China. That seems to be how the Wall Street Journal is saying that this played out. Because that, Jack Ma's thing, the Ant IPO, it already is a company that handles a significant amount of financial day-to-day transactions for a lot of Chinese citizens. And this would have made it all that much more powerful.
We're playing in this new, China's using capitalism playground. But at the core, these guys are red. Don't forget that. They do not like rich men.
The picture in the header here has that same sort of flavor that picture of Daenerys does. Or Thor, where they're kind of like, is it though? It's that same vibe.
Yeah, it's that's a strained handshake.
Yeah.
And that's not because of the vid. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, the company's still making money. And he's still the richest man in China. So joke's on the other guy.
He will be the richest man in China at Xi Jinping's behest. And he must never forget that. That was the whole point of that.
They set him down and they were like, look, you might be the richest man in China. Okay, fine. Yeah. But you're getting up there in years. How long before you need a kidney?
Oh, dark.
Stay on our good side, sir. This is, I feel like these are just, these headlines just come at us week after week. It's like the battery headlines at this point. It's like, oh, it's another country. It's another group. It's always the same thing. And it's always the same problem. It's Amazon. They use the third-party data. We know they do it. We know damn well.
EU, the Associated Press is reporting that the EU has filed antitrust charges against Amazon over their use of customer data. No, this is not a repeat from last week or the week before or the one before that. It's literally a new thing, but not really. This lawsuit is really just about how Amazon normally uses customer data to give you preferences. Like, hey, you ordered a bunch of toilet paper. Customers who bought toilet paper also bought this. That's not okay in the European Union.
And the third-party sellers.
Yeah.
So Amazon is competing with third-party sellers. That Amazon basic stuff is that's just drop ship from China. They just put their brand on it. And they're like, hey, people like this. Go make us that. Make it exactly like this other guy that's successful, and then we'll promote it. So
there's some of this stuff that I get is maybe a cultural difference because some of the transaction with Amazon is like, hey, I noticed that you're getting ready to buy some furniture. I can get the same furniture from China for way less. Do you want me to do that? And in a purely capitalistic thing, it's like, oh yeah, you should. That's completely okay. But in Europe, it seems like no, we don't want to allow that.
So the other name that's constantly embroiled in these exact same stories is Google. Because Google's kind of doing the same thing. Now, if you'll think back, how many weeks ago was that when we saw that leaked document?
1.
Was it that soon?
2, maybe?
It's been a little longer than a week. Anyway,
it's been in the news for a while.
Somebody leaked that there was an internal Google document that was kind of an instruction manual for getting around the EU's regulatory situation.
Yeah.
And guess who saw that and didn't care for it?
Google CEO apologizes for document. EU's Breton warns that the internet is not a Wild West. This is Reuters. You should definitely read this Reuters article, if for no other reason than they surprised him with it and caught him off guard. So Sundar Pichai, is that how you'd say his name?
We never
know.
They sort of were like, hey, this document is and he's like, I've never seen this. I didn't sign off on this. I don't know what's going on. But the regulators were like, they basically they said they had a very frank and open conversation where it's like, look, you're trying to pit one regulatory arm against another regulatory arm. That might have worked 100 years ago, but that's not going to work anymore. We're smarter than that now. So let's figure this out. But the results of that, whatever the contents of that conversation, we do not know.
Poor guy, but he was so embarrassed. God, I hope he gets over it. Facial recognition. Now, we saw a couple of wins in the facial recognition category during the election. More and more cities saying no to it. But then we also found out that Amazon is expanding more into the law enforcement phase, which is terrifying because you know that facial recognition is being cooked into that whole cake. In Russia, it seems, facial recognition is, the Wild West, again, is a good analogy, like they accused Mr. Pichai of. I think this is very Wild West-ish.
There's no rules. Face for sale. Leaks and lawsuits blight Russia facial recognition. So Russia's got all the advanced Chinese technology and all the software. They don't know how to secure it, and it is everywhere.
So the story given here, Krista, think about this. Think about the terror here. So this company that was sort of auditing this, they got one of their junior female people, like an intern or something, a young girl. And I think they chose a young girl because it is, the most terrifying, the young girl. And she was like, hey, I have a target, which she used herself, for ethical reasons, I imagine. I have a target, and she paid some fee. Do you remember how much the fee was?
$100.
Was it $100? Is that 100 rubles
I don't
or whatever?
It was 200, it says.
Or 200, yeah.
16,000.
16,000.
It wasn't much.
And after paying her fee, took 2 days, which is, that's kind of a long time, but not really considering what they did. And she was sent a huge trove of data that targeted exactly where she was and the images of where she was throughout the city in the recent past.
It's terrible.
Nice. So that's what law enforcement already has here in America then.
Yeah, but at least it's law enforcement. I mean, they're somewhat more trustworthy. Maybe not. So yeah, this is just a private service. Anybody can use it, and all they have to do is get your picture. Some of the the weebs in our audience, like their heart rate is like 250 right now. Like, oh, really? The girl at Subway, I can just take a picture?
Oh yeah, that guy.
Forum members know.
And China is not the only country that's having a little bit of an uproar when it comes to payment systems, because India, much like China, has widely adopted digital payments. They love it. Super convenient. And of course, these Western companies, they want in.
India opens antitrust case against Google over its payments app. This is a follow-up from, we first reported on this 3 weeks ago. So India was kind of in talks with Google. It's like, hey, do we need to open up an antitrust? And whatever they said, India put yes, we need to open an antitrust immediately. So whatever they said did not appease them. And if anything, accelerated things.
So this has to do with the Pay Store 30% and the fact that Google Pay is inherent to Android, that kind of thing.
They seem to want to use Google Pay the way that they use other payment stuff for convenience store purchases, but without the fees.
Right.
I am completely distracted by the image behind. I've immediately forgotten how he pronounced the name. What? Why this font? Why nothing else branded Google?
Are you saying where it says Google for India?
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just it's so bland, and they don't use any of Google's branding stuff. Why none of the colors? Why?
I guess the background of the letters are Indian things, right? Like famous Indian.
Yeah, but you could have done the Google colors and then put the woodblock printing that you see on saris and stuff, and did that, and then it would have felt like Google and India.
Krista, maybe the Indian country, they've got a different aesthetic than you're used to.
Maybe, but also, why did they put a stroke around the letter form? That's not something that you see in any other Google brand. It's not really related to anything we're talking about, but I hyper fixated on it, and now I want to know who chose that graphic.
You know what? You've convinced me. I'm done with Google Pay.
Yeah, I'm not using any Google products anymore, except that's almost impossible, which is maybe what that was about.
Sadly. So Twitch, we've been talking about Twitch for the last couple of weeks. There's been a bit of a copyright holocaust going on Twitch.
Yeah.
People are going back deep into the past and finding any violation that you have for copyright music on Twitch and attacking you for it, making you sign ridiculous documents. And Twitch has finally spoken out and tried to give some relief. I don't think this sounds very
No.
Impressive.
Twitch says it's in talks to license music and tells users to delete videos with unauthorized tracks. Amazon-owned service says it's surprised by the sudden avalanche of copyright takedowns starting in May. So Twitch has handled this badly. There's no question about that. But
Well, what could they have done?
exactly, what could they have done? But here's the really amazing thing: like whatever Spotify pays to stream a track, I guarantee you that is a very, very tiny, insignificant amount of money. If you gave the creator the option for creators, it's like, hey, somebody's watching your VOD from 5 years ago. Would you like to pay 3/4 of a penny whenever somebody watches that because we identified this track in it? I think they would be like, oh, okay.
And you know what? Just send me a check because I'm going to blow your mind, Twitch. Here's what you do. You build a little system, streamer jukebox, right? You go in, you build yourself a playlist. Before you stream, you get it all nice and set up. It goes through Spotify if it wants to, whatever. Twitch's own thing. Amazon's got music.
Yeah.
Amazon Music. And you set that up, and it's on the side there. It's nice. It's transparent background. It's got a nice little overlay. And my Twitch viewers can click on that and pay the bits to play the song of my choice. What do you think, like 10 cents?
Yeah.
That's probably the Spotify price, right? It's probably way above it.
That's probably more than what Spotify pays.
You could pay and Twitch viewers all day long. You're going to be like, hey, Twitch viewers, let's queue up $1 in the jukebox and get this hour going. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
There's already kind of something like that. I guess it's not really quite the same, but like there are already streaming music services that it's like already stuff that's pre-approved to play on stream.
But
so
this
you can
could
just
be,
make a playlist of that, and then you can play that in the background.
But this could be the full library because we're going to pay for it.
I'm thinking the same thing. I want to go full monkey's paw on this with the recording industry. See, with patents and stuff that is in that's technical, there's something called FRAND or FRAND. Like, fair licensing fees for patents, because you own the patent on something, you have to do stuff a certain way or you get in trouble. See also like the Qualcomm 5G modems. They're not allowed to make money from now until the end of time on their stuff. You have to sort of license it in a fair way. You can't charge one person more. There's all kinds of rules that you have to follow. The recording industry, this is a shakedown. They're basically holding Twitch for ransom, a hostage, because it's like, oh, you've done a very minor violation of copyright that actually is only worth fractions of a penny, and we know that because that's what they pay Spotify. So why don't we get an FRAND type situation set up with music so that the recording industry has no control over that? It's set by statute. It's set the same way that technology patents are. It seems crazy to me that the music industry would have more leverage to charge arbitrary fees for their intellectual property than the intellectual property in a 5G modem.
I think that that's going to fail is your 5G modems are basically all the same, but you can make a very good argument that, somebody recording out of their garage, which is a totally viable thing right now, is not going to sell for the same price as Metallica.
I think you could probably, you're right for anything recent, but I think that the older the music is, the more likely it can be licensed under something like that. And not one piece of music doesn't have to be licensed the same way. Whenever they set the Metallica rate, everybody pays the Metallica rate.
But that's not flexible enough. So the analog here is when you put music in movies, you're going to pay a lot of money for Metallica in a movie.
In the context of a movie?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, I think that's just based on views, though.
No, you have to pay that just to put it in the movie.
That's crazy.
Now that doesn't include royalties.
Oh wow, that seems like a mess.
I think if you pay up front, sometimes you can just buy the royalties.
That's sounding more and more like what Qualcomm got in trouble for trying to do with their modems, and that's what Apple accused them of doing. Is basically, it's like Apple's like, you're charging us a bunch of money for your modem, and then you want a cut of every iPhone sold.
But I'm saying Apple could use somebody else's modem, and it might not be as good, but it's the same modem. It's harder to make that argument when it comes to music.
The Intel modem was definitely not as good.
Because if I'm a Metallica fan and you give me just a random rap album that's modern, that's not fungible.
But you give me that Intel modem that has only 3 bars of service where my Qualcomm has 5.
It's still going to do something.
I guess I don't see music the same way, but okay.
might be the problem.
You definitely don't.
TikTok. Now there is an update. I saw just before I came here today to this. But the thing about TikTok is, TikTok was all of the news.
In the run up to the election.
It's all we wanted to. It's all Trump wanted to talk about. And then things got real hairy for Trump, and it was like, what? Who? Talk?
What? Now?
Somebody? Did we order Chinese food? And so TikTok was like, "Hey guys, remember us? You were trying to destroy us, but now you won't take our calls." What?
TikTok says the administration has forgotten about it and trying to ban it and would like to know what's up. I guess the Trade Commission did actually respond, and they said, "Okay, we're going to give you a stay of execution." So it's not expiring this week. The deadline,
30 days.
Yeah. So I think it's going to get another extension past January 2021.
If you can get to January 21st, I think you'll be all right. The whole idea of social media misinformation in the wake of the election and what we all experienced is now more at the forefront than ever. And the fact that the power structure is going to change, and like the government's friendliness and unfriendliness when it comes to big tech companies, I think is going to be a little bit different. And good Lord, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but every major tech news publication has just ripped away the veneer. It's Orange Man bad 24/7. Like, they're not playing around anymore. They're not tiptoeing around this.
Steve Bannon caught running a network of misinformation pages on Facebook. Yes, that's Steve Bannon. And this article goes into, like, it gets really vitriolic. Yeah.
So if you are a fan of any of these, there's some bad news for you.
Yeah, that was all.
We Build the Wall Incorporated.
Yeah, it's just sad. It's just sad. And we'll have some really funny stuff and nonsense this week too, maybe, probably. But then Zuckerberg, somebody was like, "Hey, Zuckerberg, doesn't this deserve a Bannonation?" And he's like, "Well, they didn't violate enough rules, but we're going to be watching them." And it's just like, really?
You forced a rearrangement.
Really?
Yeah.
Forced a rearrangement, chat. Want to have rearrangement.
Sorry. No, I think it flows really well. Reuters reports Zuckerberg defends not suspending ex-Trump aide Bannon from Facebook on this recording. So basically, I think Facebook is trying to create the appearance of like, this is the least insane thing on that side of the argument, so I guess we shouldn't ban it because it'll make people more insane.
I think the past article clears up why he chose that. These were massively popular.
Yeah. Huge
numbers. And growing rapidly, too. So it's like, hey, there's a fly. We don't have, Facebook users are kind of dwindling. Sure would love to have those right-wingers. But the backlash every time, and whether it's either side of the aisle, both complain about it, but there's always a group that's like, see, this is why Facebook must be destroyed. Now the 230 rhetoric, I think, is done, right?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the last we'll see of it.
I mean, there's always going to be those certain senators who are talking about it, but I don't think Biden's going to play that game. I guess he doesn't have to. Could just be the lawmakers.
He doesn't have to, but I think that it's going to be. I think lawmakers are going to create a scandal such that it's going to be in Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey's interest to come out and say, "Hey, this was actually like somebody behaving badly, working with a Steve Bannon type, in order to expose it." And they'll be the only ones in the position to actually expose it. And it'll be a quote unquote tough call, but I think that they'll do it. And when they do that, I think that's when Section 230 comes back.
Well, in any case, they are trying desperately to keep some kind of lid on all that stuff, and their latest step probably isn't going to be very successful.
Mashable reports that Facebook groups that spread misinformation will now face probation and forced moderation.
So yeah, gotta watch out for your group. If you go into this whole situation, then every post in your group must be explicitly authorized by one of the moderators. And then if they feel that was wrong, then that moderator can face problems for having made that decision.
The moderators are just like, I was suicidal before. They don't
Well,
get
like-
paid for this, I'm sure.
The moderators are like, "Oh, I'm going to get so many more hours at the Russian bot farm this week. This is great." And so with Trump's fall from grace, presumably the loser elect, he has turned on Fox News. He's decided he no longer wants to have anything to do with Fox News because they call it Arizona. And of course, he has, like I said, the tech companies, they've thrown off any sort of disguise. It is now full anti-Trump all the time. And Twitter, every day since the election, has censored at least one of his tweets. They're like, we're not having it anymore.
Do you think there's any introspection, anything that's like, maybe I shouldn't have crapped on Biden, or not Biden, I shouldn't have crapped on John McCain so hard because he was from Arizona. It's like, that doesn't have anything to do with why I lost Arizona.
Or just any sort of introspection about anything at all. Like, maybe I could have improved my campaign. If I want to run for 2024, how do I improve?
I mean,
based
he did
on these failures.
all the states that he expected to win but ultimately lose. He did kind of crap on them pretty hard.
I don't think you understand Donald Trump at all
Yeah, no.
by asking those questions.
Yeah.
That's not a part of his world. So anyway, he has spoken out against both Twitter and Fox News, and he's hinted of what we talked about earlier, starting his own thing. But there is already an alternative to Twitter for the right-wingers, and it's exploding.
Right-leaning social network Parler tops the free app charts. They should have called it Parley or something like that instead of Parler, unless they pronounce it Parley.
Well, I think it's a combination of Parlor and parlay, right?
Oh, well, that's clever.
I mean, if they were really wanting to go full, app, they should have just removed the E. Parler.
I like that they got some people that were so insane that they also immediately had to start banning them. So
Well, that was,
we don't ban people. They were like,
the other one that tried that had that
Yeah.
same issue.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, we can do anything? Let's test that. And you immediately.
How long till 4chan gets on here and really tests the limit?
Hey, everybody, there's a Klan meetup at the big oak tree at the corner of South and First. I'll see you there. Oh, no, banned.
Although technically that should be allowed, even if we don't like it. Palaver is what I would have called it. It's a better word. So that's one side of the argument. The right-wing trolls. What about the left-wing trolls? Well, we've got those too, but weirdly enough, the tone of this article, totally different.
The data expert behind helped Trump win. Now he's built a machine to take him down. And so this is a story.
Old. This is the second. We should say this is old. This was pre-election.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's worded like that.
But yeah, this is exactly the same story about exactly the same kind of thing, just from the other side.
But they're way better at it.
Yeah. Well, are they though?
Yeah, because they point out how they basically figured out how the most ripe for manipulation people targeted them, and they found out what to feed them to most manipulate them.
I thought, yeah, I guess that's true. I thought they were more effective because they had a much longer time scale. See, they did this analysis. They did the Cambridge Analytica thing, and then they ran ads for like a year, just targeting the same people over and over again. But the contents of the ads changes, and it subtly manipulated people. And it was very effective if you read the article. One of the people used to work for Facebook and then went into the private industry. So it's kind of eye-opening in terms of the mechanism for how this works. But which way that you're trying to steer people doesn't really matter. The machinery for this has already been built.
But they were explicitly anti-Trump.
Well, not at first. That's what the whole story is about a change of heart. He was pro-Trump, and then he was like, "What have I done?" Because it was pro-Trump, anti-Hillary, and then he was like, "No," and then so now he's anti-Trump.
So,
He's changed the use of the tool that he developed.
I would say that he's anti-Trump, not pro-Biden.
so we have somebody who doesn't even know what their stance is, changes it rapidly, but is in charge of twisting the minds of the blue collars.
In charge of the vast machinery that is going to twist the minds of yes.
The point is, the only thing you should take away from these two articles is that we need a compound away from the internet. That's all we need.
With Starlink, Krista, we can't escape it.
The only fix is to educate the populace, and we are not in a position to do that quickly.
That would be a great sitcom where we're hiding from the authorities in the compound, and we can't, like we're covered with a tree cannon, but we can't let anybody know that we're in there. It's total radio silence. And then every week, Wendell, like the professor from Gilligan's Island, is trying to build his own internet, and we have to keep stopping him.
Or some sort of, freak accident happens that destroys his work every week.
Chris, I'm thinking that's going to turn into an illustration and like a new mouse pad or something at the store.level1text.
Okay.
At the end of every season, or maybe even every week, an important character is killed because of what he's doing, but he still won't stop. But we laugh about it. It's like Hogan's Heroes. Like we take something really dark and we just make it a joke. We'll get started on that.
I know nothing.
Right in the pilot.
And speaking of Twitter, some people will certainly celebrate January 21st as a day when one very important policy changes on Twitter. Well, it doesn't really change the policy, but it triggers a change in the world.
Trump will lose his Twitter public interest protections in January. So that means he's going to be banned like a day or two later.
Now, The Verge. Let's read this sub-headline. Fair and balanced, folks.
Twitter's long national nightmare is almost over. It's a little
national nightmare. And finally, wow, this is a terrible story to put last. I didn't really think this through.
That's fine.
It's the most boring story.
The most boring one.
Well, it's also the shortest, too, because...
But see who wrote it.
It's our man.
Oh, man.
The legend. So basically, if you've traded Bitcoin, it takes a few minutes. Can be annoying to wait for things. And you're like, when you're using it as payment on a website and you got to leave the page open and it's like, oh, as soon as we get this, as soon as we get those 6 confirmations, we'll actually like push the order through. And then sometimes it doesn't work. Facebook says we're better than that. 7 times better.
Facebook claims its proposed payments network is 7 times faster than Visa's. But I'm going to say that's because no one's using it.
Yeah, that tends to blow up over time.
Yeah.
As that stuff gets bigger. Now, this is a sort of like a side additional thing that they claim can be put on any blockchain. So it could help improve all of them. This is Libra. Remember Libra was going to revolutionize payments, and then the government was like,
no, it's not.
We'll be doing that.
We can't call it Libra. We have to say that this is going to tie into conventional payment systems.
They have another name for it. Novi. Navi? N-O-V-I?
Novi Robotics.
All right, Krista. I don't have a themed goodbye this week. Just, it's a user's choice.
I'll just do a standard goodbye.
What is that dog still back there?
Yeah, she's kind of like tucked herself into the bed. I don't know if you guys can see her very well.
I can't see anything. Oh, she's under the blanket.
Yeah, she's kind of tucked herself in.
Doesn't that get fur in the blankets?
Yeah, this is the guest bedroom though, so it's not a problem until we have a guest, and because of the pandemic, we've not had guests. So
there's no surface of my home that does not have cat fur.
We try to keep it vacuumed, but yeah, it is like a constant fight. Anyway.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.